Hey. I hope you are doing well. I hope all is going well with you. Um, for those who see this video, for anybody who sees this video, right? Today's topic is obedience, God's obedience. And I'm briefly am going to be talking about how God had to humble me to realize my errors, right, of my ways, and all the while, how obedience is key to honoring God. And then also, if I could just be real too, I want to help another young lady. I want to help another girl. I want to help another woman in Christ, or woman who is going through. In no shape or form are we all perfect. The ones that you look to, we all have somebody that we look to, right? But what good is it to look to somebody if you can't see truth in them? If the person that you aspire, or the person that you have an idol to, or the person that seems to be grand and glory and just, they come off like they can do no wrong, or you just happen to look up to somebody who just seems to have it all. They just seem to have it all, and you wonder, like, man, like, how they get that, or how are they positioned like that, or like, I wish I was that. Listen, everybody on this earth have flaws. Everybody, married, not married, successful, not successful, inspiring, non-success, like, everybody. So this is a testament that if you look to somebody who has it going on, at some point in their life they went through, or at some point in their life they're going through and you have no clue about it, or later on in life they're gonna go through, and they will then at that point choose to be real about it, or to keep that tucked on the low to themselves. Just know that you can't look up to people. You have to look up to God, to Jesus, to Christ. This message is gonna probably seem like all over the place, and that's okay. But there's something that needs to come out of me. There's a truth that needs to be revealed, and if I can give truth to another person who's in my position, or who has experienced similar to what I'm going through, then just know this is going to be edifying to you, or this is going to be edifying to that person, or this is going to be edifying to that situation if you happen to experience it, right? So I'm not going to go into too much detail, okay? I'm not going to go into too much detail, because that's not what this is about. This video is about, sometimes God is so merciful. And let me just say this too. When I say God, I mean Jesus. Jesus, God. Okay? So go ahead and put that out there right now. But so when I first started this YouTube, right? Jesus told me that there was truth that must be revealed, right? And that there's a light, and there's a testimony that's on me. There's a calling, and he wanted me to be as real, as authentic and honest about everything that I decide to post or share. He wanted me to be real, authentic, and honest. And he wanted me at the end of the day to glorify him, right? So I was hesitant for years to create my YouTube channel because of that. Because I'm like, I don't want to be seen. I don't want to be heard. Like, I'm like, I know I have a mighty light or gift in me, but I was so afraid to share it. And so when I finally answered the call, when I finally started the channel, God gifted me ideas. God gifted me things to share and to put out there and to speak on. And all the while, he was working on me too, right? Working on me to be ready for a point in time to share his word. And I kept, every time I would post a video to my page, I kept like, man, I don't know if I'm ready for this. I don't know if I'm like, if I have this, I don't know. Like, I just kept feeling like, I don't know if this is gonna reach who it needs to reach. I don't know if what I have to say is helpful in any way. I don't know, like, if who you call me to be is who you really call me to be. I don't know. So I kept feeling like that, right? But along the way, God kept saying, no, speak more about me. Speak more about me. Do this. Show what I put in you, right? So I did it. And I'm glad that I was obedient to that call, right? And once again, as I was being obedient to that call, there started being confirmation along the way of like me feeling like, wow, God did say, God did do, God is doing. And it was confirmation after confirmation after confirmation every time I would post, right? So I'm like, okay, all right, okay. So once again, and let me say this, when I was posting and sharing and testifying in my previous videos, that obedience led to certain blessings coming in my life. That obedience led to certain favor happening for me. But there was one area that I was not obedient in. And there was one area that I was hesitant to speak on. There was one area that I was going through and still going through even now. But I was like, Lord, use me to your will, but don't let me speak on that. And today is that day that I'm not only realizing the errors in my ways, but I'm realizing that when you're not obedient to Christ, he has a way of humbling you. He has a way of making known your errors, and he has a way of getting you to a point where you got to see nothing but his will. You got to see nothing but him. You got to hear nothing but his voice. You got to experience nothing but what he wants you to experience. And I'm here today experiencing that right now. At a later point, will I go further in detail about this drastic testimony and experience that I'm going through at a later date. At a later date, that information will be revealed in the right time. But today, he wants me. He right now is gifting me the courage to post this video to remind somebody who's watching, obedience is key. And he will break you And he will get you to a point where you have to realize the errors of your ways, where you will experience the consequences of not following his orders and his steps. I'm here to remind you, he will do that. And it don't matter who you are. It's interesting because last night, right, I was watching this video on Netflix. It's like the O.J. Simpson documentary it's like one of the latest O.J. Simpson documentaries on Netflix. But what's so monumental about that documentary is the foretelling of his life. He started off so talented, so ambitious, so gifted, so special. O.J. Simpson started off as all the wonderful things that a person who was gifted by God and the talents that was gifted by God can give to someone. He was blessed with that. He was favored at a point in his life, right? And along the way in his life, he let the success and the level that he was able to reach through time, he let that slowly get to him. He let the lifestyle that he was living and the experiences that he was doing and the people that he was, having a huge influence over, the recognition that he was getting, he let all of that get to him. His whole life was, that man was truly a rare case in so many words. But what's so interesting is by the end of his life, he became, towards the end of his life, he became this person who, as great as he was and as great as higher heights that he's reached, he also experienced the lows of his life. And we all know from the various things in his life that has got him there. But he went from being so high to being so low, and to living a life that was a complete night day transformation, right? And that's the same thing. That's in certain circumstances, that's the same way. How if we're not careful with Christ, with God, with Jesus, he can have us experience a similar trajectory just like that. Now, when I say just like that, I don't mean the exact same way. I mean, whatever height in life that you are in, whatever high position you are in, whatever high influence that you have, whatever high levels in life that you've reached, however grand or big you think you are, if you don't obey Christ, if you don't obey God, he has a way of humbling you to the lowest of lows, getting you to recognize the errors of your ways. And that feeling, it's not a good feeling. Because you'll get to a point where you're like, how in the world did I get here? Or why in the world did I do that? Or why in the world did this happen to me? Or how in the world could they do this to me? People that you'll never think do things to you. Situations that happen that you never thought you'll go through. Scenarios in which you never planned out could happen to you. And some of it happens because of your lack of obedience. Some of it too happens because sometimes that's what life deals to you. That's also in the Bible too. It mentions that. Right now I can't remember the exact scripture or nothing, but it does mention that good times fall on those who's doing well and those who aren't doing well. Yeah, I can't even think of it right now, but that's in the Bible too. But what I'm here specifically to illustrate and to demonstrate is that when you know what God told you to do, when you know what he's asked you to do, when you know what he's led you to walk in, when you know the path that he's actually planned out for you, when you hear his voice, when you hear what he's telling you to do, when you see that he's planning this to prevent you from going into this, when you hear, see, and know what the Lord is instructing you to do, and you don't do it, he gives you grace, right? He gives you grace. He gives you a little time to get grace. But the longer you stay in that place of just being ignorant, of just wanting to do your will, your way, of just ignoring the instructions, God has a way. God has a way of bringing that full circle. God has a way of saying, see, when I told you to do this, when I instructed you to go here, when I led you to go there, when I tried to prevent you from moving in this direction, when I believed and gave you the power to do this, but you didn't, like, only God has a way of putting you in a position for you to finally see, you like, man, I'm experiencing what it is that I was disobedient on. And I know for some people this message may not make sense right now, today. But what I want to be clear is he always wants the best for you. He always wants the best for you. When he tells you to do something, when he's instructing you to go in a different direction, when he's preventing you from going down a path, when he's closing that door, when he's telling you, like, these people, not those people, when he tells you this direction, not that direction, when he tells you this way, not that way, when he says yes to this, or when he says this way, he wants you to experience the best. He's preventing you from harm, from hurt, from danger. He's preventing you from sacrifice. He's preventing you from destruction, whether it's your own destruction or the destruction of others, whether it's your disobedience or the disobedience of others. He's preventing, he's trying to lay out to you the right way. I'm just realizing, like I said, the error in not being obedient. I'm realizing that now. And I'm realizing the importance of obedience. And let me speak more on this too. Obedience is obeying Christ. It may not feel good. Right now, I don't feel good. I'm obeying Christ here, and this is what I want to get to. I'm obeying Christ now, right? Now. But by me obeying him now, it doesn't feel good at all. It doesn't feel good at all. What I'm having to do, and like I said, I'm not going to go into full detail about that just yet, but it's coming. That video is coming. But what I'm having to be obedient to now, I'm like, man, why didn't I obey him way sooner? Why didn't I honor him way sooner? Why did I have to experience all of this now? We all been there. We all make mistakes. We are all human. He knows each and every single one of our hearts. But what he admires more than anything is when you can obey him. When you can obey him truly for what he said to do, and you trust and you depend on his every step, every need. He sees that. He honors that. He starts to remap out the path for you. He starts to he's on the back end, he starts to rewrap those gifts. He starts to redecorate those rooms behind those closed doors that you don't have no clue about. You don't have no idea what's behind. He starts to redecorate those rooms. He starts to reline up the next great possibilities for you. He starts to rewrap those gifts that he has in store for you when you obey, when you do it his way. When you don't, he has to let each one of those opportunities, each one of those doors close, either permanently. He has to re-give those gifts to someone else who's going to obey. He has to reuse that light that's in you to somebody else. And then the sad truth about it is when you don't obey, you get placed in this position where you start to see how you could have been had you obeyed. You start to see it in someone else, or you start to see it in another thing, or you start to see your idea or your gift or your light or the obedience or the calling that could have been you. You start. Sorry, that was like a thunderstorm warning. But you start to see it elsewhere instead of you. And then you start to feel like, man, had I obeyed, had I did his way, I could experience that. And God never wants you to be in a position where you feel less than, like you feel like you're not enough. Like God never wants you to feel like that. But the situations that we get ourselves in by not obeying him, we very much welcome those demonic thoughts. We very much welcome those demonic feelings. We very much welcome those things that are not of him and that can actually lead us further away from him, when the whole point is to get closer to him. I'm just realizing a lot of this now. The thing also that I want to say is, as long as you're living, you have time. As long as you live each day by day, you have time. You have time to correct yourself. You have time to obey him. You have time to refollow him. All it takes is, Lord, I surrender fully into your will, your way, your path, and your plan. I'm sorry for disobeying you. I'm sorry for stepping out of your will. I'm sorry for choosing to do things in my viewpoint and in the likeliness of how I wanted things to plan out. Please forgive me the errors of my ways and turn me back and put me back on the right path, closer to you. Please reveal to me your ways so that I can see what you're saving me from. I can see what you're trying to prevent me from. I can see what you're trying to keep me away from. Please, Lord, help me to be more obedient and to trust in you when I don't see a way, so that I can trust every good thing that you do have for me, and I'm more prepared for that. These are the kind of prayers you have to pray. These are the kind of prayers you have to pray. These are the kind of prayers you have to pray. When you disobey him and now you're trying to correct yourself, now you're trying to correct and do things his way, these are the kind of prayers you pray. Because it's going to take that to know what's the next thing he's going to have for you to do. Just know I'm experiencing this now. I realized the error of my way. I realized I made a mistake. I fell short simply because I did not honor him, simply because I did not obey him. Thank God he graced me enough to prevent certain things from happening, even in my mistake. That's another thing. He will protect you. When you're disobedient, he will still protect you from experiencing the full raft of devastation that was really meant for you. Glory be to God. That's something that only he can do. But yeah, I just want to, this is literally a quick video to say, obey God. Obey God. Turn from your ways. Turn from your desires. Do what that hard thing is to do and obey him. Because only then will you start to see more truth. Only then will you start to see the light start shining bright. Only then will you start to feel the baggage and the weight start to drop and decrease in your life. It's not going to feel good at first. You may have to cry. I've cried a few times, just to be honest. I've cried a few times. You may get frustrated and thinking like, why in the world will will this ever be done for me? You're going to go through all the emotions I'm here to tell you. But one thing about it, I can also tell you, is when it's all said and done and you realize that God is still on your side and he still loved you enough to grace you, and he still wants to do the best for you and still have you walk through those levels in life that only he called you to do, and he still have those blessings in store for you if you just turn around and obey him. Once you realize that, you're like, okay, I can do this. Day by day, I can do this. I can take this next step. I don't know how it's going to look, but I can take this next step. I can trust that he has something good and planned for me. Y'all, just obey him. That's all I'm trying to say. Just obey him, no matter how it looks. And here's another thing too. It ain't about what other people think. It ain't about what other people think. It's about what God told you to do. Stay tuned for the next one, because I will definitely go into detail at a later date. But y'all stay tuned. Y'all stay tuned. And please obey Christ.